Welcome back to my channel. If you are new to me, my name is Naila Abdullah. I'm a mental health therapist turned toxic relationship coach. And after overcoming my own personal experiences with toxic and narcissistic family relationships, as well as romantic relationships, I'm on a mission to help women like you to be able to heal after your toxic relationship, rebuild yourself, rebuild your life, and most importantly, break the cycle of toxic relationships for good. So if that sounds like what you need, stick around and let's get into this topic of how to deal with mutual family or friends after the toxic relationship has ended. So based on my own experience as well as other women that I've worked with, most toxic or narcissistic relationships were long-term relationships. So in most cases, you have created a bond with mutual friends, right? Whether the friends started off as your friends and then became his friends, or vice versa. Family members, right? Now you're intermingle, you form a bond with their relatives and vice versa. So when the relationship ends, it makes it very complicated. So if you find yourself in that situation, you can relate to this. That is what we're going to answer today. So the first thing that I want you to remember when we are talking about how to strategize, how to navigate the aftermath of a toxic or narcissistic relationship, you have to have the mindset that different rules apply. Okay? That is a term that I've created that I believe has saved me and have saved the women that I've worked with, because you have to remember that a breakup with a toxic person, right, who are manipulative, controlling, emotionally, verbally, maybe even in some cases physically abusive, narcissistic traits, whatever it is, you consider them toxic. You're watching this episode here because you consider them toxic, right? You consider them destructive. When you are dealing with these type of people, different rules apply. You cannot treat this breakup in the same way you would treat a breakup in a normal, right, quote unquote, normal relationship. Meaning that there are relationships that ended not necessarily because one person is toxic or destructive, it just didn't work out for other reasons, right? But it's not the same as leaving a toxic or narcissistic relationship. So as we are going through these suggestions on how to deal with the aftermath and mutual friends and family, you have to change your mindset, right? That is part of healing from a toxic and narcissistic relationship, is looking at your mindset and looking at the way that you deal with things. So different rules apply means that you're not going to handle this question and how to cope with this issue and other issues as well with the same mindset that you would if you were coming out of a relationship that just didn't work out, that was with just someone who is not necessarily toxic, but it just didn't work out. So think different rules apply. I'm going to manage this. I'm going to handle this, but I cannot handle it in the same way as if I was coming out of a quote unquote normal relationship. So now that you're thinking different rules apply, because what I'm about to say might sound a little harsh, right? But again, this is not a normal breakup. This is not a normal situation. So one of the things that I'm going to tell you you need to do, encourage you to do, suggest for you to do, is that you have to set certain requirements for people to continue to have access to you. So what does that mean? There are people, there are mutual friends, there are friends that you have that maybe you share with the ex, family members that are in contact with them, whether they're your family members or his family members, but there's still a lot of overlap in relationships. You have to figure out, how do I need to protect myself from this individual? Because ending a relationship with a toxic or narcissistic ex, again, is a different situation. This person will still try to reach out to you. This person will still try to sabotage you. This person will still try to give you false hope, right? They're going to do different things. It's not the end. Leaving the relationship is just the tip of the iceberg. There is a whole aftermath, which is why it makes it so hard to heal from it. And people don't understand, why is it taking me so long? Because it's not a normal breakup, right? So you have to figure out, what do I need to do to protect myself from this individual and from this situation that can allow me to kind of be in a cocoon. Think of a caterpillar in a cocoon, right? That cocoon needs to have a certain type of environment. Now, I'm not a scientist, so don't quote me, but I'm assuming, right, in nature, you need certain temperatures, certain environments for that thing to flourish, right, and to blossom into something else. That is where you are when you're coming out of a toxic and narcissistic relationship. You're very vulnerable, right? So you need to make sure that you create that safe cocoon for yourself. So you need to ask yourself, what do I need from the people around me to make sure that I can heal? Because not everyone's going to be able to help you with this, right? And some people might sabotage you without even knowing. And I'm kind of jumping the gun here. We're going to get into that in a minute. But again, the main point here that I'm making to you right now is that you have to figure out, what do I need from the people around me? And you need to set those requirements, right? So if you have mutual friends and family, you need to figure out, what is it that they need to do or not do in order to still have contact with me, right? Because again, ending the relationship with someone who is toxic or narcissistic is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of other things that can happen, uncomfortable things, uncomfortable changes that can happen, like having to cut people off because they are adding to the stress, they are adding to the negative impact of the aftermath of a toxic or narcissistic relationship. So you have to be clear, like, what do I need from you? You know, what kind of people do I need around me? And if these mutual friends or family are not meeting that, that is where you have to start questioning, should they still have access to me? To give you a little bit more further understanding, in case you may not be clear on what I'm referring to, hopefully you are, but just one example is that one of your requirements is that they won't allow themselves, and I'm saying allow themselves, to be a flying monkey or an informant, right? So in the world of narcissism, you may have heard the term flying monkey, right? And I believe they got it from the Wizard of Oz, where the flying monkey was taking information back to the witch, right? So there are people, but I call it informant, right? So someone that is taking information back to the toxic ex, because again, this is not a normal breakup. So they want to get information about you. So they know how to manipulate you. They know what's going on in your life. And while that might sound petty to you, these are petty people. These are petty people. They can become obsessed with you because their ego is broken, that they have lost access to you, right? So even if they can't get to you, the next best thing is to get to you indirectly through a third person, to at least know, well, what is she doing? How is she doing? What's going on in her life? Is she struggling without me? Because they love to see that you're not doing well without them, right? Without them or with them? Without them, right? That you're not doing well because they're not in your life. Let's put it that way, right? So that is one of the requirements that you can think about, is who is strong enough, and I'm saying strong enough because some people are not even aware that they're being manipulated, but making sure who is strong enough around me, mutual friends and family, if they want to still have access to you, right? And this is not, I know that might sound a little like, well, who are you to have access? Like, yeah, you are someone special. We all are, okay? So don't feel like, oh, I shouldn't think like that. No, yes, you should. Yes, you should. You are an important person. You bring value to this world. You bring value to relationships, and the people that have access to you, it is a privilege, and they have to honor your requirements, right? And they have to be an asset to you and not do things that's going to harm you. And that's vice versa too. The people in your life also have to make sure that you are bringing only good to them and not adding to their drama. And if someone is an informant or flying monkey, however you want to term it, they are bringing drama to your life. So that is one of the requirements that you have to make sure of. Now, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but one of the difficult parts of the aftermath of a toxic or narcissistic relationship, when you're talking about mutual friends and family, is that some people may have to get cut off, right? And that is very difficult because you're dealing with layers and layers of loss coming out of a relationship with a toxic or narcissistic ex. Again, it's not a normal breakup, right? A normal breakup typically is just that one person. But when it's these types of breakups, there's usually levels of loss. The reason for that, for having to cut people off, and not everyone, but some people, is because not everyone has the emotional and intellectual intelligence to grasp the severity of the destructiveness of a toxic or narcissistic person for whatever reason, right? Some of the reason could be that because they're family, they were raised around them and it is normal to them. They have been taught to tolerate that type of behavior. It's normal for them, right? So even though they may see things in their relative that they don't like, they're conditioned to tolerate it. And for all of us, we all have things in our family that are not healthy, right? We're human beings, so nothing is perfect. No family is perfect. And we're taught to tolerate certain things until we grow, maybe older, and also mentally in our maturity, that we realize, like, okay, that wasn't normal, that wasn't okay, I'm going to do it different now that I'm older and wiser and in my own family, right? So that's just one of the reasons that someone may need to get cut off, because they don't understand the severity of it. And because they don't understand the severity of it, they're easy to manipulate, right? So they can be used as that flying monkey or that informant, right? They can be used to send messages back to you, not only to the ex, or the toxic ex, but come to you and bring you information, right? And these people, these toxic and narcissistic people, are so strategic. They can trick people. They can easily fool these type of people, their relatives and friends who don't know any better, because they don't understand the severity of it. Again, they may see the same thing you see, but they don't understand the severity of it. The next point that I want to touch on when it comes to dealing with family, mutual family and friends after a toxic relationship, is about children. So this topic came from actually one of my Wednesday night classes. Wisdom Wednesdays, our Wednesday night classes. It's actually a coaching call, and at this current time, at the current recording of this video, these classes are free. So don't miss out. Get in there. The description link, the link is in the description box below. But this question came from one of the callers that called in. And we always have a class first, and then we go into Q&A. And one of the questions was, she broke up with someone, I believe it was a divorce or getting divorced. Either way, it was at the end of a relationship with someone that was toxic and narcissistic, but she had concerns about his nieces and nephews that she had formed a bond with. And she felt really guilty about that, because she felt like, okay, I cut him off, but now am I not supposed to be in contact with the children? My feedback to that, again, based on my personal experience as well as my professional experience working with people and in the mental health field and relationships and whatnot, is that you have to be prepared to put you first. Okay? And that means that in some cases, in some rare cases, you may be able to have contact, in this particular case, this particular story that I'm sharing, with the nieces and nephews. But in some cases, you may not. Or you may have to distance yourself, right? You have to gauge how safe it is for you. But what you don't want to do, you do not want to stay connected to people out of guilt or out of the feeling of obligation. Oh, they're children, though. It's not their fault. No, it's not. No, it's not. But it's also not fair to you to allow this toxic ex to have access to you, or use the children. Because let me tell you something. Children are just merely pawns to people who are manipulative, toxic, or narcissistic. So you're looking at it like, oh, they're just children, they're innocent, let's leave them out of it. But the toxic or manipulative person is not looking at it in that way. Okay? They will exploit everything and everyone, right? Everyone is on their menu, right? And there's no limits, there's no exceptions to the rule. They will exploit anyone or anything to get what they want. And if their ego is bruised and they want to make sure they can still have access to you, or at least know what's going on in your life, they will use children to get what they want, right? So of course, that's not the situation you want. But again, different rules apply. You have to have that mindset and be prepared that there will be other losses in addition to the loss of that relationship. For those of you who know me, you know I can come off a little tough sometimes. And that's because it's just life can be much more simple if we are honest and practical about things. And the statement I'm going to make is very practical. It may not sound fluffy and pretty and nice, but I'm not always here to be fluffy and pretty and nice. I'm really here to help you to be able to heal and move on, right? So one of the mindsets that I encourage you to have is that no children, no family, no friends, no one is going to die without you. Okay? And I know that sounds harsh, but that's the reality of it, because I think society, culture, religion sometimes makes us feel obligated again to be connected to people out of obligation, because it looks right, because it sounds right, like the example I gave with the children. Um, Nobody's going to die without you. They may be sad, but people will move on, right? And again, I'm not advocating to cut everyone out your life and whatnot and live solo, but you have to be selective. You have to be careful, right? For a couple of reasons. One, like I said earlier, because you are in a very vulnerable space right now. So you have to make sure that it's like if you found a puppy that's all in mud and bruised, you had to take it to the vet to get stitches, whatever it is. You're gonna baby that puppy. You're gonna take such good care of it. You're gonna nurse it back to good health, right? But we don't do the same when it's for us, ourselves, right? But that's how you need to look at yourself, because coming out of a toxic and narcissistic relationship, again, is not a normal breakup. You are coming out of battle. You are coming out of emotional and psychological battle. You are exhausted. You are drained. You have to nurture yourself. Surround yourself with the right people. And again, you may not have to cut everyone off, but there's some people you may have to distance yourself from. So relieve yourself of the guilt if there's some people that you have to pull away from, either temporarily, a little bit, a lot, completely. Relieve yourself of that guilt. And from a practical perspective on life, nobody's going to die without you. Nobody. They may judge you. They may say they miss you, whatever it is, but you have to put you first and remember that this is not a normal breakup. And if there are people, mutual family or friends, that are connected to you and the person, the ex, that can possibly sabotage your healing, your journey, you have to pull back. And that could be mother, father, brother, sister, on their side, your side, children, whatever it is. You have to realize that this is a crucial time in your life. And if you want this healing process to go, I'm not going to say fast because it's not a race, but you don't want to be jumping in and out, right? You want to continue to make progress so you can move on with your life, right? So that means you have to take this serious and understand other people will not take it serious because they don't understand it for whatever reason. So you have to be selective with who you allow in your space. If this episode was helpful for you, I know that you will love my Wednesday night classes. Wisdom Wednesdays, as I mentioned before, are my coaching calls where we teach a live class on different topics related to healing and rebuilding after a toxic and narcissistic relationships. We also open up for Q&A. This is all live. So the link to that is in the description box below. Go ahead and click that link. Also, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe. As you know, if you give it a thumbs up, this helps the algorithm push this information out to other people who need this. And unfortunately, toxic and narcissistic relationships is a common problem in the world. So go ahead and help me spread the word, spread this information and this support. And of course, if you have someone in your own life that may need this, go ahead and send this to them as well. Thank you again for joining me, and I will see you in the next episode.